What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you guys tuning in for another video. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. We're still doing 3 videos a week and planning on continuing that into the new year. So make sure you hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. Merry Christmas to all you guys. I appreciate everybody on the channel this year. You know, every single like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that helps the channel and help us grow together. So I appreciate each and every one of you. Hopefully you had a great Christmas. This time of year, you know, I start doing a lot of reflecting on the year and start thinking about, you know, what worked, what didn't work. And I kind of got a good idea for this video that we're going to talk about here today. And that is the top baits that I used this year. So these are the baits that caught the most fish in my boat throughout the entire 2024 season. You know, fishing on the Bass Pro Tour, it's kind of unique. Actually, all this information is available on the MLF Score Tracker. I think it's called Score Tracker Insider. You're able to kind of click in each angler and see what they caught fish on, you know, after the event or even during the event for the fans. You can see all that information is available. So, you know, you could even go fact check me if you think I may be lying about some of these baits. But I kind of thought through it, went through some of the data and came up with, I don't know, what do we got? 5, 6 baits that caught the bulk of the fish for me this year throughout the Bass Pro Tour and just going out fun fishing here around home. So if you guys are ready, let's jump in. And some of these may surprise you, so you're going to want to stay tuned and make sure you watch the whole video. You know, this year, 2024, it really seemed like it was a forward-facing sonar-dominated schedule on the Bass Pro Tour. I mean, a lot of the events lined up perfectly, you know, with that pre-spawn, cold, winter-type fishing where, you know, you're throwing a minnow at a lot of those fish. But to my surprise, the jig head minnow was not number one on my list. The number one bait for me in 2024 was a jerkbait. Now, don't get me wrong, I threw a lot of different varieties of jerkbaits all over the season. Different colors, different baits, different depths, you know, deep diving ones, shallow diving ones, floating ones, suspending ones. But overall, a jerkbait put the most amount of fish in the boat for me, you know, from the beginning of the year all the way through now. I mean, I'm still catching fish on a jerkbait. So a jerkbait has been my number one bait throughout the entire year. Like I said, I caught them on it in Florida. I caught them on it in Texas at, you know, where were we at? Toledo Bend. I guess that's Louisiana. Toledo Bend, I caught them at Rayburn on a jerkbait. All the way up to New York, the St. Lawrence River, I pretty much caught every bass in that tournament on a jerkbait. Chowan River. I mean, I could go on and on with the tournaments where I caught fish on some sort of jerkbait throughout the year, and is by far my number one bait. And man, it is it's crazy to think, you know, in this time frame where, you know, finesse plastics are dominating and you know, you think the fish are so pressured that, you know, a hard bait would put the most fish in the boat for me this year, but that's exactly what happened. Now, the important part of fishing a jerkbait, there's a couple important things with a jerkbait that, you know, I kind of knew going into this year, but after, you know, catching so many fish on it this year, I've really learned number one's going to be the line that you throw it on. So I like to throw it on, I start with a 12-pound Seaguar Invisex. That's like my go-to. That's what I start with, but I'll throw it as heavy as 17-pound and as light as like 10-pound. So you can adjust your line size to help that bait act a little different. You know, the lighter line, that 10-pound line is going to help the bait get a little bit deeper. That heavier pound line is going to make it not dive as deep. So it's going to stay closer to the surface. So, you know, there's different situations where you want to do that. So like, for instance, right off the bat, the Chowan River, we were fishing in very shallow water. I'd say less than 5 feet, less than 6 feet of water. And there was these stumps that would come up and they'd be like, you know, 2 foot under the surface. So I was trying to take a jerkbait that typically dives 4 to 6 feet, and I wanted to keep it above that stump that was only 2 feet under the surface. So I was throwing it on heavier line where it wouldn't dive as deep and get hung up in that stump, things like that. So those are the situations where you can adjust your line. The second key with the jerkbait is making sure you have good treble hooks on there. So I like to use the Trocar treble hooks. I've messed around with a bunch of different hooks, but having good treble hooks on there is really key so that you land those fish that bite it. They nip at it, they swipe at it. So make sure you land those fish. So jerkbait by far #1 in my boat this year. Next up, we kind of touched on it earlier. It was the jig head minnow. So again, I threw a bunch of different sizes, a bunch of different baits, but this right here is the primary bait and jig head that I go with. So this is just the Queen's Tackle tungsten jig head, not a sponsor. It's just a bait a jig head that I really like to use. And then this one probably put the most fish in my boat of all the minnows that I've thrown. The 3-inch Yamamoto scope shad and Becker's grape juice, my exclusive color with Fish USA. It's a perfect alewife shad. Any kind of small little bait fish imitator, perfect for that colder water like you're doing. And you know, it's very simple to rig the jig head minnow. You just rig him straight up the back. The scope shad kind of has a flat back, so it's very easy to rig him up. But one little tip is I like to make sure that the bend of the hook kind of comes out of the bait a little bit. So it kind of almost looks a little crooked where the bulk of the bait is down there, but that helps him roll a little bit better. Other keys on the jig head minnow is tying a loop knot, because that helps add a little action to that bait. But the jig head minnow, I mean, like I said, I threw a bunch of different baits, different sizes, but the scope shad is my go-to, either Becker's grape juice, or if I want something a little bit shinier, I go with the green gizzard color. So those are my first 2 choices in the scope shad. The only time I wouldn't use one of these 2 colors is if the water's really dirty. That's when I'd go with like the sight flash color. It's a little more whiter, brighter, that kind of stuff. But jig head minnow put a lot of fish in my boat this year. So that was probably #2 in terms of if we're ranking these in order. I think I was trying to rank these in order. You know, it's hard to tell once you get down. As we get further down this list, you know, the numbers are pretty close, but far and away, these 2, the jerkbait and the jig head minnow, put probably twice as many fish as any other bait we're about to talk about this year. They were very dominant in my boat, and they can definitely help you guys catch some more fish. So next up on the list, the trusty old drop shot. So 2 variations of a drop shot that I used this year. One with this hook is more of my smallmouth style drop shotting, where I'm nose hooking a minnow style bait. The other is a more Texas rigged worm style drop shot. So both of them 2 different situations, but the drop shot, you know, put a ton of fish in the boat this year. I like to use an Epic tungsten drop shot weight. So this is the 1/4 ounce size. That's probably my go-to if I'm fishing, you know, that 10 to 12 foot of water, 10 to 15 foot of water. If I get a little bit deeper, I'll go to a 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce if we're fishing real deep for smallmouth. 1/4 ounce is probably my go-to. That's what I start with. Now, I use the TK 180. This is the 2/0 size. That's my go-to when I'm using the Robo Worm. So this is my standard starting setup for largemouth drop shotting right here. That would be the 6-inch fat straight tail Robo Worm. So it's a little bit thicker than just the regular straight tail worm. I don't know, it'd be kind of hard to tell if you don't have one for comparison, but it's a little bit fatter, thicker, just a little bit bulkier worm. That's a great color. That's one I always start with, just a pink or purple. Any type of those shades of Robo Worm will get the job done. So that's my go-to if we're, you know, looking for more of a weedless presentation on a drop shot. We're gonna throw that one with the TK 180 from Trocar. And then if we're going for smallmouth, I'm picking up the tried and true, my favorite bait, the bait that I've made the most money on in my career, the shad-shaped worm. And generally I'm starting with this color right here, natural shad, but there is a bunch of great color variations. You know, this is the one I start with. If the water's just a little bit dirtier, I'm gonna pick up my other exclusive color with Fish USA, which is Becker's Magic Juice. It's kind of a dark green pumpkin with the natural shad belly. It just kind of darkens the bait up a little bit, imitates a goby, a perch, that kind of stuff. But the drop shot must have in everybody's boat. And between the robo worm and the shad-shaped worm, that caught me a bunch of bass this year on the drop shot. You know, from literally Texas, I caught them on this. Chowan River, I caught them on this. St. Lawrence River. I mean, you name it. All over the country, the drop shot catches fish. So, yeah, you got to have a drop shot in your boat. Put a bunch of fish in the boat for me this year. James River, I caught some on the James River, which that kind of leads me into the next bait that put a bunch of fish in the boat this year. And this one may surprise you, maybe not, but that is the Core Tackle Ozark rig. So it's a very unique rig or hook. There you can see one out of the package. This one was actually tied on. I cut him off just for this video so I can kind of show you guys how to use it. But you know, it's got all the lead on the shank of this hook, and it's just a great alternative to, say, a Texas rig or a flipping setup or even a jig. You know, it's a more of a finesse approach to a jig. Now, on the Ozark rig, I pretty much exclusively throw the flapping hog, Yamamoto flapping hog. This is a bluegill imitating color. This is green pumpkin with purple and copper flake. You know, I probably threw this one and black and blue the most if, you know, if I had to choose two colors of the Ozark rig. But like I said, this was my alternative for fishing a little bit shallower, fishing docks, that kind of stuff. So rigging him's a little different. You don't go through the nose like you would with your standard Texas rig. You go straight through the side. Basically where you would come out on your standard Texas rig, and you just impale him, go straight through. Okay, you go straight through the bait, and then you slide him all the way up over this lead, twist him around a little bit, and then that lead keeper up there locks that bait in, and then you just slide him on right there. Oop, we're sliding out. Okay, right there. Let's get that tail straightened out. There you have it. That's the rig, the Ozark rig, and that put a bunch of fish in the boat for me this year. That's probably, what, fourth on the list, to be totally honest. It caught a lot of sneaky fish that didn't get a whole lot of press, didn't get talked about a whole lot, but this was kind of my secret little bait. If I needed to catch one, I pulled him out, flipped him around, and I could catch a fish pretty quick on the Ozark rig. So, moving down the list, we got a couple more moving baits. So, these two go pretty hand in hand, to be honest with you. They're pretty similar. And where you're fishing them and how you're fishing them. But that's going to be a lipless crankbait, number one. So this is the Bill Lewis hammer trap. So this was, you know, kind of a good moving bait, cover a bunch of water, fish some grass, that type of stuff. So this is the 5/8 ounce size. It's a pretty big bait. And then even down to just the 1/4 ounce original rattle trap. I mean, you can see he is chewed up. He caught me a bunch of fish, especially this fall. But the rattle trap, just a lipless crankbait, caught me a bunch of fish this year. I know I had a top 10 finish at Santee Cooper. I caught the bulk of my fish on the hammer trap, a couple different colors, a red one, a shad colored, a chrome one. I mean, you got to vary your colors a little bit, and you just cast and wind this, cover a bunch of water, but it fishes through vegetation extremely well, and that's what I like about the lipless crankbait and the rattle trap. Now, next up, kind of like I said, similar to, I think this is the last one we got that made the list. You know, obviously I caught some fish on some other baits, but these were the top ones of the year. And that would just be the chatterbait. Like I said, it's very similar to the lipless crankbait. in the locations you're fishing it. I guess you could mix this up a little bit, kind of skip him under boat docks and things like that. But generally speaking, I'm fishing the chatterbait around grass, you know, ditches, that kind of stuff. And this is a excellent color. That's probably one of the ones I start with the most. It's just the spot remover color. Excuse me. It you know, it's kind of got a little chartreuse hue to it, but it shows up really well in that water. You can fish it in clear water, dirty water. It's a great color to start with. But the cool thing about this color is you can really change the profile or how the color looks to the fish by adjusting your trailer. So I really like the Yamamoto 3-inch Zako. And on this colored bait, I pretty much throw 3 colors. If the water's a little bit dirtier, I'm going with the Sight Flash color. You see it's very white, kind of clear and silver flake on the bottom, but it really brightens up that bait, makes it look a lot brighter and whiter. Second color option would be the disco green color, which it's more of that natural greenish color. It matches that bait extremely well, so it kind of all looks the same color with this trailer right here. So that's for that, you know, clean water when you want it to look very natural and streamlined. And then if I want to, you know, kind of make a two-tone type color, I go with this one. This one's the rainbow shad color, but it's got more of a brown back, and it'll really darken up this bait. You know, you take this same colored bait and put 3 different trailers on, it's going to have a different appearance in the water. So that right there, man, that's some juice. We gave up some juice. Those are the baits that caught me a lot of bass this year throughout the entire season. So hopefully you guys learned something from this video. If you guys are looking for any of this tackle, I believe everything I talked about is available right now over at Fish USA. So there's links in the description down below if you want to head over there and check it all out or get stocked up for the 2025 season, which is approaching really soon. So hopefully you guys learned something. Leave me all those likes, comments down below. Did any of these baits surprise you? I'm curious. So make sure you leave that in the comments down below. Hit that like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Merry Christmas, of course, and we'll see you guys next time.